It is more important than ever in Watcher Realms to not sleep on every new hero just because they can't help you immediately. So this is mostly a late game, end game thing, but even if you're mid game, you should be thinking about this. Early game, go for the super OP heroes we know are good now and that you can use immediately. But for everyone else, when a new hero comes and is decidedly unique, I've preached this forever, for almost 2 years now, it is probably worth your time. There's always going to be some kind of opportunity cost. Of course, by going for some new hero that we speculate could be dominant, you might miss out on the next banner in 2 weeks that has a hero we already know is dominant. But time and time again recently, we are seeing as Watcher of Realms adds new content, we need old heroes that had really amazing unique abilities because they dominate that content.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
I've had a lot of correct calls in this department, I will say. I think my first really good call dates back to Farsy in like October, November 2023. I was so high on Farsy. I made a bunch of content on him, and everyone else was just saying, he's a mid healer. What have we learned since then? He's going to be the start of this case study as I try to prove my point and we try to discuss this. What we have learned, and this is something I touched on at the time, nearly 2 years ago now, over a year and a half ago, we knew Farsy's skill here was really unique. Sand Aegis applies AoE damage reduction to all allies in range. Combine that with the fact that once he's promoted, which of course he will be, he has that big boy hollow vortex range. That is a huge amount of heroes getting a permanent and unique buff in this game, AoE damage reduction. At the time, some people might not have built him out or might not have thought much about him because healers aren't sexy, and you might have clicked it and saw 5% decreased AoE damage taken. Who cares? Well, with skill ups, it is minus 25% AoE damage. What does every boss in the game do now? AoE damage. And how do you survive? You need Farsy. Farsy has become completely and utterly dominant. It started with Apocalypse 2, but we see it now in Abyss 1. We're seeing in all upcoming content, left, right, and center. There's huge need for this ability. It's strictly unique to Farsy. It's a unique type of buff, so it stacks with other buffs. It is just so powerful. But if you slept on him at the time, it kind of could have hurt you. It kind of could have. To be fair, all that content came many months, if not a year plus after his release, so no one's shaming you or faulting you, but whenever any of us instantly dismiss a character because they're not as good as the current OP dominant characters on our account, but that character has something unique, you might be making a pretty huge mistake. So let's talk about some more recent examples. I don't think there's anyone in the world more tied to Bubba or Beelzebub than I am. I was right from the get. I sincerely believe that. I said he is so unique, he is so powerful, he does 8 things, he is crazy. I stand by that, and for progression and until you reach the endgame, you can find a use for him in basically every piece of content, and because of his very unique range, he opens up strategies that were never before possible. After his release, Daochan and most importantly A1 Daochan came, so there were 2 units that could enable a lot of those strategies. But even still, because of that insane 5x3 range once he's promoted, he could do crazy things. Like you could be buffing both platforms on either side of the map in Gear Raid 1, just for one example. But a lot of people said, who gives a crap? I already beat Gear Raid 1. Well, in 2 days, 122, 123, and 124 are coming. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, Mother of Crows is here, and he's the only inspiration hero in the game that can buff more than one other unit. I mean, just instant moments like this when they add a new piece of content, an old character who was good and you might have slept on because he wasn't needed on your account immediately rises to god tier status. Additionally, Beelzebub is a nice pivot point to buffs in this game. Yes, I know we don't have as many reworks and buffs to characters as we would like in this game, but they do happen, and time again, they're really powerful. Now, you cannot plan for buffs, so that's not really the thesis of this video, but I do want to take this moment to mention it. right? Beelzebub was already good. The kit was already perfect for Mother of Crows. He already would have been meta for Gear Raid 1, 22, 23, and 24. However, if you don't know, Beelzebub did get a buff a few weeks ago in which the rest of the kit stayed the same, but also now where his basic attacks or triggers of his passive, Plague of Ruin, will also restore HP equal to 50% of his attack to one cultist ally in range. These can be really clutch heals. The really amazing thing they added was, during his ultimate, on top of all the insanity that already came with his ultimate, we actually got him becoming the second AoE damage reduction hero in the game, joining Farsy. This is just for cultist allies in range, but remember his range is 5x3, which is just enormous, and this is a 30% AoE damage taken reduction, the biggest in the game, bigger than Farsy. It is just so powerful. We obviously can't anticipate buffs, but we can anticipate unique things finding power later on. Let's talk about Yuri. Everyone said I glazed on Yuri. I mean, Yuri is, from the second she joined the game, one of the best progression units in the game. As a piercer and a nightmare with a very, very unique ultimate range, damage hopping abilities, and just a ton of extra stuff in her kit, including one of the best defense breaks in the entire game, she was instantaneously a top super high-end hero for progression. A lot of people, though, said, well, she's not better than what I already have in APOC 2 for Semra, or she's not going to be better in my Nightmare 4 team, or she's not going to help me in Guild Wars, or whatever like late endgame focus thing they were on, so thus I was wrong and she sucks. No. She was already God tier 4 progression, and once you know it now with the new maps, she is just phenomenal for anti-air arena. And don't worry, I'm not just defending all my good calls. Of course, I've made bad calls too, but I'm just saying sometimes when it seems like maybe I'm overhyping a character, it's because I'm seeing something in that character that is really freaking unique and will be really powerful in something to come. When they add stuff like this onto characters, eventually it is realized. Sometimes to lesser degrees, but it always is realized, and that will bring us to our next hero. But Yuri right now is just phenomenal in anti-air arena. She's still amazing for all that progression stuff. And then on top of all of that, she's on some of the top teams in the world right now for Mother of Crows, the hardest Immortal Codex we have. So let's talk to someone whose potential was realized to a lesser extent, who I've also been accused of glazing, but we actually got immediately content that made her shine. Dalia has an argument to be a top 1, 2, 3 DPS and crowd control unit for AMR 22. When she was introduced, there was no AMR 22, and frankly, there wasn't really any content where you need this really weird range, this one long line. Her tile and then 6 tiles in front. It's just bizarre. However, it has just grown and grown and grown. It has not reached that pinnacle of where like Bubba is crazy meta for certain things now, but for AMR 22, she provides one of the easiest solutions in the game, fulfilling 2 different roles exceptionally well. More crowd control than you need, and very, very good, very reliable DPS. She did find her way into Guild Wars defense with certain maps where she really dominated, though she never reached that super, super top meta because she doesn't work on every map. But Dalia, we did see a hero that some people just thought, I have no need for that, and then the need was introduced into the game. I still think to this day, we're going to get another piece of content that is just crazy for Dalia, or maybe a new AoE arena map where she just owns, right? That's just the direction the game goes. If they introduce something really unique, be careful not to sleep on that hero. I'm not saying to break the bank, and I'm not saying to dump all your savings, but if you're holding out, and this is kind of where this video is headed, you're holding out for who's the next Kagiri, who's the next Wukong, those don't come around very often, and when they do, they seem to be limited heroes. So yes, you can go crazy trying to get dupes, but so many of you will get unlucky and won't get any dupes, or won't have enough summons to even have the chance to be lucky and get dupes. So I just think that's pretty important. Obviously, when we know someone super OP is coming, you can be really cognizant of that. I think there's no better example right now than Numera. I very much personally am saving my summons for her. I chose not to go for Malric because I think Numera will be that important. But that doesn't mean, you know, in the in-betweens when we don't know there's a crazy OP thing coming, that you should just hoard and stockpile or just think DPS or bust. There's one more hero I want to talk about, and then I want to kind of conclude this by pointing out some characters in the game who I think might be slept on right now, but have something really special and unique in their kit. So you should be thoughtful about definitely not dismissing them, but also keeping them in mind for future content and maybe taking a shot, even if it's a loose shot, when their banners come along. The last unit I want to talk about though is Diachan. I was the conductor of the Glaze train for Diachan. The second she came, I said we've got a new Triple S. Bye-bye Dolores. This is a top 5 non-lord unit in the game. No one thought she was bad. No one disagreed with me that she was going to be amazing, but people did question, well, why is she going to be better than Dolores? Why would I go for her when I can use Dolores for this, or this? Well, she's just so much more well-rounded, and at A1, she gets the crazy range. She gets the Aelin range, and that is just everything. I can't show it on her when you click A1, but I'll just show you here in case you don't know. This becomes Daochan's range if you get her A1, and this just enables so many more comps. She's basically required right now for Arena if you want to succeed. She is completely God tier for all the new gear raids that are coming. She is insane. She's completely brilliant for Abyss 1. Any top team will have an A1 Daochan or higher, and just that was as instantaneous as anything's ever been. We saw she was coming. We saw that attack range increase at A1, and we said, hey, this is going to be something truly special. And I actually think she has an argument that she's the best non-Lord hero in the game. It's her and Eloin right now. I mean, unless you're crazy about DPS, of course, but a lot of heroes still can do DPS. No one can do Daochan. No one can do Eloin. But that's a debate for another day. But she's just that crazy. So you can just see when something so powerful, so unique shows up, even if you can't think of an immediate use for it, you gotta be smart and do not sleep on these things. So before I give you some shout outs of very unique characters already in the game you should be thoughtful about because their kits are very unique, I do want to mention one quick thing, and that is hero buffs. Sometimes a hero buff is not like what happened to Beelzebub, where you had a great hero whose kit became greater. We are seeing now that hero buffs can be full reworks of Dogwater. This is a dog shit hero, Beatrix, or I should say, she was. She now is one of the singular most powerful DPS and solo units in the whole game. She is an insane mage. They changed everything. This is nothing you can ever anticipate. You can't say, oh, this hero sucks, like, oh, Aurum sucks, but obviously he's going to get buffed and get the Beatrix treatment. That is not a thing. But what you can do is not sell your copies of heroes until they're A5. I know that's a little hoardy, but seriously, guys, I have preached that since August 2023. Do not dismiss a hero just because you think they're bad, even if you have no use for them on your account right now. Two things can happen. They can get buffed and just become God tier, or at least OMG tier, insanity tier like Beatrix, or content can show up and they can be really good. This is a big throwback, but no one really hated Anai more than I did when she came out. That was a big thing on my channel and in my community. But even though I hated her and I thought her kid was very, very mid and was a big disappointment, I made sure not to dismiss my copies, and wouldn't you know it, several months later, Arbiter of Frost came, and she is very dominant there. You never know what piece of content is going to show up and allow your bench warmer to get off the bench and shine. So please do me a favor, at least save the one copy, but honestly, I would never dismiss any hero, no matter how bad you think they are, until you have them A5. That's just me, and obviously that's like basically a whale take, because I get to summon like a whale. So, who are the heroes you should keep your eye out for because they already have something really unique in their kit? I'm obviously not going to name every single one with anything unique, but I'm going to try to go through class by class in just a couple minutes and shout them out for you. Aries is really good. He's basically Torador as a fighter. He's got the 100% uptime, at least against single target stuff, with this minus 20% defense. A very good, very reliable defense break, the same one as Torador. But then also, he brings this 30% increased physical damage taken. This actually is the biggest physical damage vulnerability debuff in the entire game. So if there's content where the only way to scale the damage higher is physical damage vulnerability, that's something quite interesting. And if they could just make his kit even a little better in terms of his DPS, the whole thing kind of comes together really well. He's got crazy base stats. He really does. Over 6,000 attack and coming up on 30,000 HP. So if there was any slight adjustment to him, this guy could have a really proper place. Or if they had some kind of tower content or event content with any rogue light restriction, saying like no tanks, no defenders, he's basically just going to swap in functionally as a Torador without the stuns, but then a little better DPS, and if they ever buff him, a lot better. And then, of course, the very, very good 30% physical damage vulnerability. Another one I want to shout out really quickly, Seline obviously was a disappointing shard summoning event, but if you can get Giselle, which is a big if, she then gets the biggest magic vulnerability in the game at minus 30%. This is different than magic res reduction, just as physical vulnerability is different than defense break. This is the biggest in the game, so again, if there's content where we need that, that could be pretty cool. Also, she might have some really nice synergies with Nastia, aka Nasty Girl, the new Esotericist Legendary Lord that is coming. Someone to keep your eye on, and I could see them buffing her and giving her poison or something, and then she's just whole god level with Nasty. So definitely keep an eye on her, even though she cannot be summoned at this moment. No one else here I'm seeing that's so strictly unique, but I will say Absson is probably as close to as due for a buff as any unit in this game, so please do not dismiss him. If we continue on, I'll just give a shout to Araka. Nothing too special here, but just while it's on my mind, her poison might have a nice cool thing with Nastia. Maybe she'll get another buff. Who knows? She actually did have a buff a while back. Some people don't know. Falsia did get a buff, so she's already really good. But if ever there is content where you need physical damage and magic damage at the same time, not like Abyss 1 where it's one and then the other, Falsia will just be a god. She also brings a lot of true damage. And actually after the buff, she's just doing a lot of damage now. I still need to make my video on her. If we continue on here, I know Jira has kind of fallen out of favor. She was super hype with the first batch of 120k plus APOC 2 Semra Guild Boss 2 teams that were coming in. But as we found more and more and more solutions and we got better and better power creepy heroes, she just completely fell out of the meta. But Jira's kit is very weird. It's very unique. Definitely keep an eye on her. And also, I could see them cleaning up the kit a little bit and giving her a buff. She also probably has the craziest base stats in the game. That's why she's so good for BP affiliation. If we continue on, Rygar, just keep your eye on Rygar. I could definitely see him getting a buff, but not like you're going to dismiss a Legendary Lord. And I think we're looking pretty good here. Zena, I will say, obviously a lot of people know Zena can be really, really strong. For those first 30 seconds when you get the full advantage of the talent and you get 25 seconds of her deploy ultimate, she's as strong as anything in this game with her nutty single target or AoE depending on what you need and how many targets are in range. She's already really strong, but there's no really important content that you need her for with her cycling on and off, but cycling on and off is kind of the name of the game in tower defenses, so very likely we will get more content that she will shine in just as she shines in the middle in Gear Dungeon 2, Gear Raid 5, for example. I think that's pretty good for fighters. Let's continue on now. Obviously, we're always going to spend the most time on fighters. For defenders, if they run a rerun on Captain Reeve and you don't already have him, definitely go get him. The amount of crowd control and DPS this guy puts out for a tank is really, really nutty. He obviously has the really unique passive kind of bond skill with Razak that's very good for progression as well. Continuing on, no one here is jumping out, except I will say Azor and Aurum suck, so they're very likely to get buffed. Malvira, though, she's kind of the pinnacle of this example. There's like 6 different things in her kit that are so unique. Like I said, she's already really good. She's a high-end defender, but it just takes one piece of content where she is the god of that content, and I would think that content is coming. So much DPS, very, very good frequency on death saves, which is a unique thing in this game. Usually that only happens once, and obviously a lot of damage reduction. The whole kit here is really interesting. She also has a pull-in effect of Vortex, which is very rare. I definitely think there'll be content coming eventually that Malvira really shines in. If we go to the marksman now, obviously Talon is a really good example of this. She's already really good in a lot of content just because she's really strong, but her dual stance thing should only prove to be more and more and more valuable. But the best example I can see here is Kai. No one puts out traps like Kai. So if ever there's content where we need traps or traps are the meta solution, basically it's Kai and it's the rare hero Cuke, who since Poison was nerfed a year plus ago is basically useless. If you need some kind of AoE traps, Kai and his worm snares is a crazy thing. He's also not weak at all since his buff. He's just not that good. And then finally, if you just need to crank your marksman damage up to the moon, this eradication protocol is really good. A 20% damage increase to all allied marksmen. They don't need to be piercers, any marksman at all. And it lasts 10 seconds. Kai could be doing cool stuff in the future, so keep your eye out for him. Let's go to the mages now. To me, there's no super obvious one jumping out, but if I could shout out 2, first one would be Shamir. He has this drowning water crowd control effect. It's completely unique to him. No one else can do it, but effectively it triggers Immobilize. Immobilize is not the most common crowd control debuff in this game, so if there's content where we need it, Shamir will definitely shine. Also, he's absolutely a buff candidate. Speaking of buff candidates, here's Zealous. He sucks ass. Let's continue on. The other one I want to mention is Kada. Everything about this kit is very bizarre and very unique, so you could just see that piece of content that exists. Already, people have always found ways to make Kada shockingly strong in random things, but he's really never been meta. Even in PvP stuff, he's never been passed off meta. There was a brief moment in Arena well over a year ago where he was on some of the top comps, but basically he's never been in the meta, but the kit is so weird, so unique, you could easily see him being meta. I could also see him getting a very slight buff that launches him in a very, very, very new way. Let's continue on now, finally, to our healers. Basically, I got to give my biggest shout out to Dasami. I already love Dasami. He's very strong, but he brings the best and most reliable cleansing in the game. He brings a very surprising amount of inspiration. I think people sleep on this because it's only 20%, but it's 20% of his attack. His base attack is fairly high, and over the course of the battle, it gets higher and higher and higher from this passive. It actually grows by 10% per stack up to 3 stacks. So after just a minute when he's skilled up, it will be up 30%. That really takes him to a really high level. Yes, he won't be like Daochan Dolores, but it'll be pretty close. Combine that with the really, really good cleansing and also the very good shields he puts out if you have his exclusive artifact. I can see more Dasami content coming in the future. I'll throw one more thing out. Tula probably should get a little buff in the future, but she just brings a lot of stuff. She really does. She has heals, which unfortunately are not as strong as they should be, but then she's got physical and magic damage reduction. She's got rage regen. She's got dispel, so cleanse. There's just a lot going on here. So if there's something where you just need all of that in one package and maybe she gets a little tweak, Tallulah could be really strong. There you have it, guys. I hope I proved my point fairly well. Thank you to R-Type for editing this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, but essentially, don't sleep on every hero just because they're not super strong, super meta right now, especially if they have something very strong, very unique, very special in their kit. I mean, a great example actually is live on the banner right now. Would any of us really be surprised if in a little bit of time there's something Malric is required for on all the top teams? I wouldn't be surprised, and I don't think you would either. Thank you for watching. I've been Fastidious. If you like my stuff, please subscribe to the channel, share with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.